If I'm not mistaken, that might have just been a minotaur. And the past couple of weeks, I've made jokes that I thought was just gonna be jokes about minotaurs hopefully pounding in DIX's face and just honestly sending him to the Shadow Realm. And seemingly that's what we're getting. I think when I first brought up the joke, because that's all it honestly was a joke, I had a couple of people I thought like indirectly spoil me with their hints being like, oh, we mentioned a minotaur, clearly there's going to be a minotaur. But the fact that the following episode didn't have a minotaur, I thought it was just an insider light novel reader's joke that I just didn't understand. And now to see the end of the episode, it seems like a minotaur's coming to the rescue. And if he kills DIX, I will be so happy. I will literally be jumping for joy, quite literally. This episode answered a hell of a lot, but also gave us the worst case scenario that Bell ever wanted. The intelligent monsters are fighting the humans. You have Lead, who is down in the dumps. He realizes that there's nothing he can do and even fully admits that he feels like a monster himself because all he can wish is harm upon those who did him wrong, and he doesn't care if other people get in his way besides Bell, who he actively wants to get out of there because he believes there's no turning back. It was an episode that answered a lot about why the whole slave trade was going on, and the slave trade was seemingly much more complex than I was realizing, more of a way to get funds in order to continue the Dallas's little mission that he wasn't able to accomplish in his mortal human life, so his descendants, who all get the D in their eye. Holy shit, that is wow. I actually kind of like how Don Machi isn't simply using the slave trade as a convenient plot device, as if everything surrounding them is specifically because the ancestor hated them or something. No, they're actually using it for one, fun, because you can see Dix is a lunatic. He completely is unhinged and deserves to be put underground. About 10 feet under, not even the traditional 6, about 10 feet under. That's all well and good, but he enjoys doing it, but then it also creates them enough funds that they can continue building this operation, and that's actually much more interesting, because I don't think anyone really expected that, at least for anime originals, because obviously source material readers clearly should know what's going on. But to have little girls, women, men, children, all those people get sold into a slavery, not because necessarily like there's this grand scheme mission, it's more of like they're just profitable. And that actually changes the landscape quite a bit because it makes it even more pissy for these characters to know that it was simply for money. Like, it's just so horrifying, and to see the escalation just nonstop, seeing how it just kicks into high gear almost immediately. There's no real breathing room in the episode. Like, traditionally, when Belle's talking to a character, that's the breathing room, but I can't with a straight face say there was breathing room in this episode. Every time characters slow down to talk, it was two sides knowing they didn't want to fight, but had to fight because of the circumstance, and Bell was literally flabbergasted. He didn't have anything to say besides what and how can this happen. And some people may want to criticize Bell for that because he hasn't really had his epic super moment yet, and he's been more concerned and passive and honestly just completely depressed. But that's what makes Bell such an interesting protagonist right now, because even though he inspires that confidence, hell, he's the reason why he's actually able to have conversations with these monsters. At the same time, he's kind of gotten lucky in the sense that pretty much everything he's wanted to happen has happened. And I do expect there's probably going to be a somewhat peaceful resolution, at least not complete annihilation and bloodshed. But it's interesting to see Bell, this character who's given a gift that he levels up so fast more than anyone else that everyone assumes he's cheating his way to new adventurer ranks. He's someone who gets the support from everyone, and even when he gets into trouble, there usually is a way for him to get out of it and gain an ally or two in the process. But to throw him in this situation where he's so dumbfounded he doesn't have the words to say to stop this, except begging, and that begging's doing nothing, it actually brings Bell down even more a notch to an even more respectable protagonist, because he's someone you want to root for, and because you've seen him reach this point, you're not going to be disappointed if he finds a solution, because it actually does feel helpless, and I've been saying it for so long. The only way that I could see them getting out of this is finding them a place above ground where humans never go, and I don't even know if a place like that exists. And after seeing everything, like, it feels like bloodshed has to happen on either the human or the monster side, and I doubt it's going to be the human side, all things considered. It just is a painful episode. It's something that gets your mind not really racing, but just concerned every step of the way. To have Bell just completely crush and crash and just crumble as you have these characters you really wanted to believe in, and even the characters who were kind of like saying, hey, screw alliances, let's just kill the humans, even they are kind of like, you look at them and say, I don't even blame you anymore. I don't think you're just that character who's trying to take the power for yourself. You firmly believe that these humans are going to cause you pain and there's nothing you can do. Like, even Lead in this episode says that he tried to talk and talking did nothing, right? it just feels like war is the only option, and that's kind of the unfortunate truth about even our own history. It feels like it always ends in some form of conflict, one way or another, and the victor will obviously write history to their advantage, and so that when people look back, they're going to look at them with good eyes. It's just hard to see these characters in cages. It's hard to see our girl chained up like just some piece of meat. It's bad. And to get the conversation with Hermes and just how he was just getting the answer, they actually did a really great job at explaining this exposition in a very natural way, because you get it from both sides. You get it from DIX sort of filling in the sentences, as you also get Hermes kind of like explaining what's happening. It was really nice because you'd get a decent amount of information from one, then you'd switch to the other, and then you'd switch and you'd switch. It wasn't this constant back and forth, which I typically see usually when you use two characters to explain a circumstance that are separated. It's almost like every line, but it was nice to have these characters have a few seconds, like it felt like 10 seconds each, before switching, as if each person had a main point you wanted to hear, and then you'd hear from the other side. And by doing so, seeing someone who we believe is good and someone who we know is evil, to have them both explain things in different ways, it lets you see the perspective from both ways, and it really does kind of paint a much clearer picture than what we were left off with up until now. We're halfway through season 3, and it feels like I don't know where this season actually wants to end. If this battle is going to be the end-all be-all for the monster storyline, or at least in terms of the slave trade, I feel like there's still 6 episodes worth of content to see the aftermath with all the humans, and that's really exciting to me. It just felt like this episode was supposed to emotionally drain you, and if that was their objective, they did so with grace, and I think that's what they wanted to do, because this is a heavy episode that did have its action, but there was no comfy scenes. There was no scenes that made you smile, it just made you sad and depressed, and it's just so uncertain to know where everything's going to go now. This episode, I think, was also more quiet than I was expecting. There's a decent amount of action, so you hear the clashing of swords or characters yelling, but in the slower moments where it is just simple, soft-spoken dialogue, but there's so much emotion underneath, they really did silence it quite a bit to give it a more uneasy atmosphere, and I think that's something the production has done really well. I think JC Staff clearly loves DanMachi, because even though it may have these moments that everyone can obviously agree that look amazing, sound amazing, it's honestly this season and its more simple moments that you're not necessarily going to pick up on your initial watch, but when you really sit back to think or rewatch, there's a lot of smaller elements in the production at play, from sound design to also visual design, that really bring out a scene at hand, and without them, the scene would suck. But you don't necessarily notice them because they do their job so well, they blend in seamlessly as the main stars really kind of take hold of the scene and show us something truly extraordinary. And honestly, anyone who says DanMachi's production is lackluster is honestly fooling themselves, if I'm being completely honest, because it's a very high quality production across the board. If you have any thoughts though on DanMachi Season 3, Episode 6, let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, because this is an episode that I think has a lot to dissect and analyze, and I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on, I'd say, arguably one of the best DanMachi episodes across all 3 seasons. Let me know your thoughts, be sure to leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.